Hi guys, welcome back and hello if you are new. So it's hard to believe that In Flames have been going for 33 years and this year will be releasing their 14th studio album. And I think it's fair to say that in the last couple of years they've released some pretty divisive records, but for pretty much everything I've seen everywhere else, this is very much a return to form. So here's what I thought of In Flames' brand new album, Foregone. So first things first, the topics of the album are all to do with the idea of losing time and essentially everything going in the wrong direction. It's exploring the very happy fact that we are all doomed and essentially marching towards our end, which, to be totally honest, in the last couple of years, I kind of am on board with. The duo of Anders Frieden and Bjorn Jalot are still charting the course for In Flames, but they're joined by Tanner Wayne, who is on drums, and Bryce Paul on bass. This is also their second album with the band, but making his debut is Chris Broderick, who previously has been in Nevermore, his own band Act of Defiance, and also Megadeth as well. So he's got a hell of a CV and he's absolutely fantastic guitarist. This is without a doubt the strongest In Flames album that they've put out in the last 7 years, and I would say probably the most return to their core sound. It's also album number 3 with Howard Benson, which I think is interesting because he literally got taken on board on Battles, which a lot of people didn't like. I really enjoyed it. I had some great promo experiences with the guys and it really kind of made me kind of appreciate the album a little bit more and understand it a little bit more. But I think in terms of production, the band and Benson have found a really good middle ground. But of course, In Flames' pièce de résistance is always to do with melody. And these really do come roaring back on Foregone Part 1 and also Meet Your Maker as well, being big highlights. Bjorn will often lay down the foundations of a melody that will take flight via Anders in the chorus, and it will get stuck in your head whether you want it to or not. The ballad of Pure Light of Mind is a perfect example of that. It starts with that initial doo-wee-wee, and then when we go past, sort of the verse, pre-chorus, and then into the chorus, it just soars completely. And Anders' performance on this album is really, really, really fantastic. It's a clever trick that In Flames have done time and time again, and it always works. It also makes something, where tracks might necessarily not have been as great initially, kind of really sort of worm their way in, because you're like, oh, I just find myself, wandering around humming those riffs, and I was like, oh yeah, that was actually a pretty good song. Bleeding Out or End the Transmission is a great example of that. Like, they weren't my favourite songs, but weirdly they're the ones I've had stuck in my head the most. And there were tracks on here that I will concede weren't necessarily my favourites, but you cannot deny that In Flames know how to write a serious hook. That being said though, they've definitely ramped up the heavy on this album, and there are some real kind of straight up Gothenburg circle pit rippers on State of Slow Decay, Foregone Part 1, and personally my favourite, which is Meet Your Maker, which has that really pounding triplet riff. And when I heard those double pedals come in, I was like, wow, this is old school In Flames. Yeah, for all the heavy sort of stuff, there are some songs which fall a little bit flat, like Cynosure. That was just felt a little bit more like filler. But then we've got tracks which are like a dialogue in B flat minor, which I think is Anders' maybe strongest performance on the album. I love those kind of harmonies that he's playing with, and it is very much signature In Flames. Another surprise was Chris Broderick's leads and just how effortlessly and well they've embedded into this record's sound. You can hear immediately that it is Broderick's style, but it never overshadows Bjorn's melodies. with just kind of shredding all over the top of it. And it's really a combination that works very, very well. Where solos are concerned, you know, Bjorn, I think, makes sure that that melody is anchored and, you know, it's often quite sort of safe. But then Broderick kind of goes out and paints outside the box a little bit more, which is nice because it keeps things interesting. There's no arguing that this is a very strong effort from In Flames, and I think they've finally kind of found that middle ground between being, you know, a heavy band, like heavy melodeath band, but also that sort of active radio rock, which they were kind of looking for, I think, in the last couple of albums. I wouldn't say it's good enough to be an album of the year, but definitely worth your time to have a listen to, see what you think. And I'm sure if you're an In Flames fan, you'll probably think this is a pretty good return to form. So yeah, definitely recommend giving it at least one listen. So thank you ever so much for watching this album review. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of the record and the video in the comments underneath me. I always try and reply to as many of them as possible, but it can be a little bit tricky sometimes. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button as well. As ever, I hate saying it, but I have to. And I will see you guys next week for another album review. Take care, my friends.